Okay, so good afternoon. Welcome to HFR603 Hotel Finance and Revenue. This is the Masters class, and today we have Oskar Will from OTA Insight. Oskar, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Antoine. Yeah, hey everybody. Happy Tuesday, I think it is. Keep my head on track with the week. Everything's going by so quickly in this time. But yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully today, a few things. We're looking at how the market is going, also how COVID-19 is impacting a lot of the areas, not only just in Sydney and which obviously the campuses are, but we'll also be looking at a more Asia Pacific and also perhaps a global scale as well. But just before we jump into this, I just wanted to do a quick presentation on OTA Insight, just for those who aren't familiar with us as a company, and yeah, just to of course put a bit of, I guess, groundwork before we jump into the data that we're going to be presenting. So this is of course the company in which we see here. This was taken about November, I think, last year, so not too long ago. But yeah, this is OTA Insight. So just a very quick about me. Of course, my name's Oskar, as Antoine introduced me. I'm 22. I actually also studied a Bachelor of Hospitality Management. Of course, you're at the next level, going, and being in the master's level of that field. But similar kind of industry, or I should say industry, similar kind of education in which we both all, or I should say we've all shared. Previous to OTA Insight, we were, or I should say I was working in Four Seasons Sydney, in the guest services coordinator position. So a bit different, to be honest with you, to the revenue side of things as I'm currently in. But yeah, I mean, something I very much enjoyed. I think, even if you're in this level of masters, I think we all share, one thing that we do share is a love for hospitality and the industry. So I think, yeah, that was a really, I think, important part of my career to date. So yeah, definitely hats off to those guys. And of course, past that, was typically just working the typical hospitality jobs like the pubs, and I feel like it's almost like a rite of passage, right? So that was what I was doing as well. So for my position, I'm essentially looking at the Australia, New Zealand, and a bit of the Oceania and Pacific market as well. So again, I'm that kind of point of contact, taking care of any main accounts there, essentially just the business development side of OTA Insight for these regions. And for the company itself, our mission statement is looking at helping hoteliers optimize their revenue and ultimately making their life easier. So that is what we do through our company, and our solutions is looking mainly at revenue aids for a lot of hoteliers. Again, I'll touch on as we go throughout. So a very quick breakdown of OTA Insight and how our, I guess, company model is looking. So of course we have our founders and also the CEO, which are all on board. We have Sean, who is the CEO, Sean Fitzpatrick. We have Matthias, and then also Gino, who is they're currently the COO and the CFO as well. We did also have a third founder, Adrian, which again was he's actually stepped onto the board away from the company itself, but it still remains on the board. So that's headquarter, the commercial side of things, who's kind of leading us in that direction of where are we going to be looking for in the future years. The business development team is of course what I'm involved in. So these are essentially the sales team. We are the face, in terms of putting out there, getting clients, signing any agreements, also across any chain deals as well. So we are essentially people who are putting it out there for the partnerships to be taken in. Marketing, of course, as in a lot of companies, is basically what is being seen to the public. Any kind of conferencing, basically as the marketing department does in any kind of company, but still a very, very crucial part of OTA Insight, and a lot of things that from my end makes my life a lot easier, such as leads and things like that. Incoming business and so on. So work very closely with them. We have our field APAC marketing rep Co, who's again, we work very closely with. So yeah, it's a nice relationship. Operations and customer success. So these are the people who are typically handling any requests that clients may have, basically any troubleshooting, also setting up any accounts which need to be set up. So again, trial periods and so on. So that's kind of like the back end almost, that we're looking at there. Revenue Insight team. So Revenue Insight is actually one of our platforms, one of our solutions, which is the primary driver for 2020. Again, this is something that I'll touch on a little bit later. I'll give you a quick sneak peek. But yeah, that's essentially devoted to this one core product, because we do see Revenue Insight as being a very specialized platform, a lot more intricate than some of the other ones that we do have. With it's based off of a PMS integrator. One of them, Muse, some of the big names like that. So we integrate into their PMS system of that specific property. And then again, from there, it's much more revenue focused, looking at different segments, different business origins, countries, companies, and things like that. So really breaking down that PMS's, the information. And as Antoine will tell you, to be able to do that from a PMS, it is an absolute lifesaver because, a lot of these PMSs are quite outdated. We see the UI is very kind of 90s focused, kind of looks a bit like an arcade game. And a lot of the time, the information being taken from these PMSs is really, really tricky to do that. To pull a report, it takes you. So yeah, it's something we're seeing like a lot of good feedback from, and hence why we have a specific team. The product team, again, is somebody who's, or I should say a team, which are mainly focused on just keeping our platform at the pinnacle of revenue aids. So again, we're looking at any improvements that are coming about, obviously in the tech industry, to be at the forefront of your industry in terms of updates, upgrades. It is mandatory, because ultimately, if somebody does come up with another feature which is more modern, more intuitive, just more useful in general, a lot of the times, you do see these companies unfortunately going under, or perhaps looking at other negative, impacts from that. So that's a big, big part of what makes OTA Insight, such a great company and place. The engineering team is looking at essentially, the real back end of the platform. So things from APIs, which some of you may know what they are. Again, looking at the coding of the platforms, the UI, the UX design, and so on. So these are the real back end. Essentially what we're seeing on the on the screen in front of us. To be honest with you, I wish I could explain more about what the engineering team does in detail, but it is so far beyond me. They are incredibly smart people, and again, it's hard to explain if you don't know, which I can openly say I'm not fully aware. But yeah, of course, we couldn't be here without the platform, without these guys. So they are, yeah, and they're based in Belgium, actually, in Ghent, which is fun. Finally, last but definitely not least, is the finance and HR team. So finance, looking at following up payment, debt collecting, whatever it might be from the customers. Also, of course, the people who pay us, which is always an important part of a job. And then also, yeah, the HR team. So again, I can say that without a doubt, we have one of the best human resources teams. First of all, that I've ever encountered, but from feedback from people who have left the company, from just general insight, they are one of the best. So work very, very closely with them. And again, it's, even though it is a growing company, you always feel you are kind of their only focus, if you will. So it's really nice to have that connection with somebody like that. So yeah, that's a bit about the company. So as I said, we have the founders there, Adrian, Matthias, and Gino, just being shown. 2014 was when we essentially launched our first product called Rate Insight, which I'll give you a quick sneak peek afterwards. Again, as you can see in 2014, we are only 9 employees company-wide. So it just shows you how young of a company OTA Insight is. At this point, only really 6 years old when you are looking at this first product launch. 2016 was kind of a big year for them, looking to expand across the different countries. You saw that they've gone from Ghent and London, so from Europe over into the US. So again, they started to develop a sales team and really pushing for that expansion. We've then seen in 2018 there that we got our first capital injection. So again, that funding to take us to the next level, where we have integrated different products. We see here that Parity and Revenue Insight, which are 2 of our 3 products, were launched from that as well. So again, we've already had success with Rate Insight, which was our first platform, and again, we will expand upon that, keep on top of the game, and offer these different insights there. We also hit 100 employees at the start of 2018, and then going from 2018 to end of, I should say, that year, we were at 160. Myself, I included, was joining at the end of that year as well in 2018. So being here for a little while now, when you look at the grand scheme of things, it's kind of funny, if you're here for more than about 2 years, you're kind of seen as a veteran, which is weird to wrap your head around, but that's it. And then 2020, I mean, look, we, obviously a very difficult year. I will be the first one to say it's, I think across every industry, especially hospitality, it's been a hugely impactful year. Unfortunately, a lot of that being negative. So for us, we had some, some goals for 2020, which we had to revise a bit earlier, about a month or so ago. But we did want to kind of reinforce that we'd stay on top of, keeping new features in place. As a lot of companies are at the moment, we are, looking at reducing spending in a lot of ways which aren't essential. But we do, as I say, want to keep on top of what's going on as a company. So that was kind of our mission for 2020. And again, I think towards the end of this year, it will start to definitely get better. So I guess just holding out until then, right? Perfect. So yeah, I mean, this is in such a small company of just over 2. So even more, honestly, at this point, this is just so hard to keep, track of, and to see how many, I guess, offices or remote workers that there are. So yeah, I mean, it's a great thing. I think, when you have somebody in Sydney, such as myself, and then, when you go over and you have people in Dallas or Nashville, as we see there, Argentina, it's just such a widespread company, which is awesome. So look, I guess at the heart of OTA Insight, what makes us, the company, the great company that we are? What are the main pillars? So I think in any kind of a company, passion is key. As I'm sure you are all, as students understand that, without passion, or without, I guess, studying that, something you're interested in, it's really not going to go anywhere, right? That was one of the main reasons, at least, why I started to study hospitality, was because that I loved, the aspect of communicating with people, the aspect of being, in that interpersonal kind of circle, and getting paid for it ultimately. I love talking to people and kind of getting involved. So that was a huge reason about why, I wanted to do that as a degree. And that's really carried over to this as well. Whilst not being immediate hotels, which I'm working in, it's still something where I do get to speak to the people in hotels, and it's a very communication-based role, which I love. So I think, yeah, passion is important in anything if you want to succeed in it. Yeah, to be high performing as well, that's obviously a key driver for any kind of a company, especially when it is in its kind of infancy stages in a way. We do work really hard for, the company, and, the results have been shown by, 8 out of the 10 global chains being our preferred partners. Some great success we've seen, and it really is a testament to the work that's put in by the team. So yeah, innovation, as I touched on before with the product team, we always have to keep innovating, because you never know when somebody's going to be around the corner with a new feature which might, blow us out of the water, right? So we always want to keep at the top of that, and we have one of the best teams in the industry for that. Really, really hardworking and very, very smart people. So a huge part of the platform's success. Of course, a familiar one, I think, for all of you, if you're working in hotels, is service. The client always comes first. We always want to be putting our clients as, a first priority, no matter how busy we are or whatever it might be. I mean, it's something that we've seen hugely this past, couple of months. As you can imagine, a lot of people are kind of freaking out, right? There's been hotels which have gone under, completely shut, and they've kind of come to us and say, hey, like, is there anything that we can do in terms of pricing? And it's the one thing that I'm really proud, to be a part of with this company, is that we have really been well received to these kind of requests, and, really stayed on their sides, because the last thing that we want to convey is that, we're just going to hold somebody to, an agreement or whatever it might be, or just hold somebody to, that we're not going to be there for them, because that's what a lot of companies are doing in this time, which is really, quite upsetting, especially if you have a mum and dad property which is owned, in rural New South Wales as an example, So it's, yeah, really, really proud kind of moment, I think. Humility is a massive one. So I think ultimately, it is important to be humble with your success, but, also if you are, say, in a position that is, say, upper management, whatever it might be, we're very flat level in terms of that. So I think, for me as a business development manager, if I need to speak to my head of sales, it's no problem. I'll always just message them on our internal messenger. Again, Antoine's quite close with Ahmed, so he knows he's a very relaxed guy, and it's something that we take, very seriously. We never want to feel like an entry-level sales development rep or something of the sort, message head of sales, or even a CEO. I mean, there's been times where I've just directly messaged my CEO and just, had a chat with him, and it's always fun. It's really, really well received, which is so unique in a lot of industries, right? So it's a great thing. And then, of course, not to sound cliche, but yeah, fun is a huge one as well. So we about 4 times, 3-4 times a year, do different team gatherings. So I understand that last year we went to Singapore, also Portugal towards the end, and then also some different market visits as well, which was great. And it's just, again, I'm gonna, at the risk of sounding cliche, it really is a kind of work hard, play hard kind of an attitude. So yeah, it's really, really cool. Something that, again, I never thought I would be doing at quite a young age. So I feel incredibly grateful to be given the opportunity. So yeah, that's kind of what makes up the company. So this is just some things I put in. So this was in Lisbon, in Portugal, in November. So we had the whole team there. So again, these guys are basically the whole commercial team. And just to give you an idea of the transparency that occurs in this kind of a workplace or in this company, this is the CEO, this is the CFO, the COO, the head of product, and again, we have general managers of the Americas, the CTO as well, for global operations, and then that's also the director of HR. So basically, they all just got up, in front of the whole company and said, "Hey, do you want to ask us any questions? We have everyone here. If you have any underlying questions, please, ask us." So I thought that was really awesome, because I don't know what kind of a company would honestly do that if it's, say, a more traditional thinking one, which is really, really cool, really unique. So it's a really kind of a forward-thinking company, which is awesome. And again, we have some of our engineering guys, just a group photo, and it's a great, great team. We feel really, really lucky to be a part of it. Now, some icons here, which I'm sure that you're, identifying here, such as, SiteMinder or Duetto, Ideas, some of these, RMS companies, booking engines, things like that. So a lot of these ones, as you see here, we have really good, integrations and partnerships with these guys. So not only are we standalone doing quite well in our field, but, something that has also taken us to the next level is working really closely with a lot of these, different providers and different technology partners, which is awesome. So again, it's really cool to see. So I guess, if we were to refine it to 3 things, just to cap this off, what makes us unique? I think that the first thing that we've heard, a resounding feedback from a lot of our clients is that our data quality is the best on the market. Again, it's something that I can tell you from even, internally, that it is one of our, real points that we take very seriously, is to make sure that, we are always giving our clients the best kind of data quality. I mean, I know a lot of companies, if something was wrong, say in the platform, they'd just be like, oh, maybe just ignore it, or whatever it might be. But again, with us, we're always very honest, upfront, in the very, very rare occurrence that there is some kind of invalid, market or kind of data in that sense. So yeah, that's one of the very things that has made us, where we're at the moment. Another thing is, of course, actionable insights. So as Antoine has, I'm sure, told you, and we've had discussions about this, is that 5-10 years ago, something like a rate shopping platform would never, have existed, right? I understand we and had a discussion about when he was doing his revenue management days, and just the ability to have something where you can change your different channels on your distribution and look at your different competitors' rates, and just to have, all of your parity, your events in the area, ranking, everything in one browser is just, it's the holy grail, right? So it's really cool to see how these things have, and modernized throughout the time, and that's something that we've taken advantage of here with the platform. Allowed the user to simply click it, this or that, whatever it might be that they want. So
If I can
really,
jump
really
in,
neat.
Oscar, if you don't mind me jumping in,
Yeah, please.
with rate shopping is basically go and check your competitors' rates. And to give you an idea, what I used to do is I would go on all of my competitors' websites to check their rate. And I would check the bar rate, and I would check a discount, and it takes a lot of time. And that's where Oscar's point is critical, is that now we have this tool here that gives you that in a heartbeat, in a fraction of a second.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And that's the point. That's the key point.
Definitely. And Antoine, if I can ask, I mean, how often, say, if you were going to plan out, let's say a month, how long would that take you to, say, check across each one of your channels, your OTAs, for all of your competitors, just for a month, let's say?
About an afternoon.
An afternoon? Okay, fair enough. So just for the class here, let's just keep in mind, okay, that what Antoine's just said, it takes about an afternoon to shop for a month, okay? Just remember that, and we'll come back to it in a bit. Perfect. But yeah, look, again, just to finish that one off, as I said, take customer service very, very seriously. Now, we have something in the industry called an NPS score. I'm not too sure if anyone knows exactly what that might mean, but an NPS stands for Net Promoter Score. And basically, that's what feeds in to the overall, I guess, score, if you will, of our products and our company as a whole. So we're looking at aspects such as how, is the customer service from this company, in terms of things like how is the product, in the market, and so on. And you're kind of looking at how the customer service and customer care feeds into that. And we have, a hugely high rating of 74, which is, unheard of for a lot of companies, which makes me so proud of our team, our customer success and operations team, because they really are, legends in that. So yeah, something to be very proud of. Perfect. We'll move on, and I will just go here. So look, this number is always changing, to be honest with you, and for the positive, might I add, which is, good in this current. So we do see, that we are partnered, as I say, with 8 out of the 10 global chains, like, IHG, like Choice, Accor, Marriott, Hyatt, these huge names, and we are their preferred vendors, which is just really a testament to the product quality and, the service that you do get from the platform, which is, yeah, awesome. And these are just some of the names that we are also partnered with. I'm sure you all know some of these ones. We see things like Holiday Inn, Onyx, some of you might know, the Asia Pacific, Asian market, a huge array of different clients, which is great. As I touched on, we are also looking at these partnerships, but again, I kind of already went through these ones. But yeah, we have the likes of Ideas, again, Infor, STR, the benchmarking platform, a huge array of different aspects of a revenue tool. Cool, but look, let's jump into a live demo here. Oh, there goes my screen, flying down there again. The market data, I just would like to very quickly just run through, and just to that point we were talking about just before with Antoine. So if I go ahead and just log on to this right now, we're going to be seeing our bread and butter solution called Rate Insight, which is where it's, again, our rate shopping element, and this is where we're going to be looking at any, or I should say all of the relevant factors which impact the demand of your property. Okay, so we can see here you have the rates tab. So this is your rate shopping element. The events tab, so any events within your area which we believe will impact the occupancy and demand of your property. Parity, so again, where we're looking at the the distribution, the spread of your hotel. In this case, we are seeing that a lot of hotels, of course, are shut or sold out in this case. So usually this would show your rates simply just across. In fact, we can have a look at one of the future months here, say August as an example. Hopefully we have some inventory being shown there. Yeah, perfect. So we can basically see how the rates are looking across brand.com. So that is the direct booking website of the Crown Plaza Auckland. And again, as you know, with distribution and parity, you always want it to be in line. You have feeding from your direct booking website. So we'll identify if there are any disparities here. So at the a super quick glance, just like that, you can see, okay, I know that Expedia is out of line for Sunday or whatever it might be. So very, very simple. And then finally is the ranking tab. This is going to be looking at your placement or your sort order across the different OTAs here, booking.com, Expedia, and then also TripAdvisor just there as well. So again, it shows you all of your competitors, how they're doing in terms of their ranking across the different OTAs here. So really, yeah, an all-in-one solution. So quite neat. Now, as we were saying just before with Antoine, and we were looking at how we can compare the rates of our property versus our competitors for a whole month across. You said it was an afternoon, right, Antoine? So you can see here that to look at the whole month just in front of us, that is, and then to hover over one day here, that took us what, about, I'd say what, maybe 3 seconds at the max. So you see all of your competitors, their lowest rate, even as well, we're going to let you know basically what room type they're offering with that lowest rate. So it's very, very interesting to be seeing that. And as I say, you can also go to different views here where we can see all of this on a month glance here. So you can simply hook and yeah, just go throughout there. So very, very, very intuitive. And again, time saving. It's the premise of this, right? And technology in general, I think. So yeah, cool. Any questions on that, or are we okay to jump into the data? I'm not too sure if you can speak on the call. I'm not too sure if they have like the permissions or.
Yeah, they are allowed. Any questions for Oskar so far?
No, not yet.
Perfect. All right, cool. So I'll leave that just open there for us. Cool. So one of the things that we've seen is in the recent times with COVID-19 that, you know, everyone is hurting, right? There's the hotels, hospitality, and just businesses in general are taking a real whack from this virus. So one of the things that we did just as an initiative for the company was we had a look at the marketplace. We thought to ourselves, you know, what can we do to, you know, help out in these current times? The one thing that we saw, there wasn't a lot of information for what was basically going to be happening for the future. You know, what's going to be happening with the different, regions, what a hotel is going to be looking at doing for the future months. Again, there wasn't a lot of that. So we took it upon ourselves to basically create a sub-platform for people to use. Now, in this case, we looked into what can we do, and as a tech company, the one thing that we have a wealth of is data, right? Data and information. So from this, we went ahead and created this sub-platform. So from this, we looked basically across 40 of the cities globally, and then from that, we went ahead and created sample sets of around 100 to 100 hotels per sample set, or, you know, per city, if you will. Included in these sample sets were 3, 4, and 5-star properties. Again, so you can randomize mix to see how the market is going, not just specifically how, you know, 5-star or 4-star, whatever it might be, is going. So we've again had a look at that and created these sample sets. From this, we've then gone ahead and created these 3 data sets here. So the first one, looking at the percentage of hotels who have changed their rates versus 7 days ago. The average rate change that has occurred, again, versus 7 days ago. And then this is for me the most interesting one by far is, you know, per city, what is the percentage of hotels which are being shown as open? You know, are we seeing a lot of them being closed out? Looking into the next 90 days, what is the, you know, the rate looking per city or per region? So again, all of these data sets will be looking forward for the next 90 days, which is always, you know, a good kind of forecasting scope to be looking at. So look, I'll just kind of run through it here. I'll go slowly in this. So if anyone has any questions, please, you know, just feel free to interrupt me, and I'll be happy to explain it a bit more. But otherwise, let's jump into it. So first of all, we're going to be looking at which region we want to select. So again, we look at Asia Pacific, EMEA, North America, and Latin America. So obviously for us, Asia Pacific would be, you know, the most relevant for sure. But it is, you know, also interesting to see what's going on in Europe or in America. You know, it's always cool to see what's going on in these different parts of the globe. So if I hit Asia Pacific, and that's going to take us down to our first graph here. So what we can see in this graph is in Asia Pacific, what is the open rate percentage of hotels that we're seeing across the next 90 days? Okay, so here on the y-axis, we see the percentage of hotels which are open. And then on the x-axis is the next 90 days going forward from the start of this week, as we see here, Monday the 11th. So as an example, if we wanted to toggle off, you know, some of these markets as an example, let's keep on Sydney and Melbourne, just so we can get an Australian, I guess, look into this. So what we're seeing here, and again, as you notice, if I hover over, the data is in fact interactive, I should say. So you can see and get a day-by-day breakdown here of what's going on for these different regions. So just to make it a bit simple, I'll just have a look at Sydney for the current time. And as an example, if we wanted to look at the current day, which is Tuesday, the 12th of May, we can see here that in Sydney, we are seeing that 82.88% of hotels are being shown as open for this specific day. Does that all make sense there?
Yes, it does.
Perfect. Awesome. So we also can be looking at, as I say, into the future. Now, by doing this, what we're essentially looking at is, are these hotels on their direct booking websites showing as having inventory for, the continuing on periods? So we do see here that it is, it's quite neat because there is almost, I like to say, a silver lining to the end of this graph. We can see here that, when July clicks over, we notice that only, 6.5% of hotels are being shown as closed in the Sydney market, which is great, because if we look back at some of the previous weeks, which we of course, can do that, it shows, a very different picture. So again, very interesting to kind of compare these different week by week analyses. Perfect. So I'll continue on to the next view in which we have here. If I go down to the bottom, we can see, I'll slide over to this one. And this is going to be looking at, in Asia Pacific, what is the amount of hotels per city who have changed their rate versus a 7-day ago period. So again, we'd want to go ahead and toggle off some of these other markets. Let's use them in this example. Cool. So if we wanted to pick a high point here, just so it stands out to us, maybe here, this looks like a bit of a rounded curve here. So I can see in this instance that, in Melbourne on Wednesday, the 3rd of June, we can see here that 23.58% of hotels have changed their rate versus 7 days ago for this day. So again, we're seeing that, again, versus 7 days ago, we're seeing on this day that 23.5% of hotels have changed their rate. So this is giving us, I like to say a bit of a yes-no kind of option here. So it's not looking at if they changed their rate higher or lower. It's just saying, have they changed their rate or have they not? If we wanted to be looking at, what the rate change was, we also can have a look at that in the next graph here. So if I scroll down, come to the next view here, and again, just have a look at Melbourne as we just were. This is going to be showing us what the rate, the average rate change was. So we see here as 0%, the line going through. And then again, if we noticed here, on these kind of dips, as we can for, that's a lower point throughout this next 90 days. We can see here that for Melbourne on Tuesday, the 14th of July, the average rate change that has occurred for this day is negative 19.85%. And that's again versus 7 days ago. Now, whilst this might seem like, negative, 19%, oh dear, we can see that, if we do look, to the start of, say if we have a look at, March when, the isolation, the quarantine, the lockdowns were really, really getting strict, we can see a much worse picture, as we notice here with Sydney as an example. We can see here one of these dips is looking at negative 41% of a rate change was the average rate change that was occurring. So nearly half of these rates were just being slashed, by half price. So it's pretty substantial. So, when we are looking at towards the future, we do start to see these signs of repair, which is, really, really crucial for these different cities. Is there any questions on that I can explain a bit further? Anything from, I guess, the group there, or Antoine, even yourself?
All good from me.
Perfect.
Anyone in the audience?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Silence is always a good thing because it means that I can at least present it.
Okay.
And
Joseph is asking, these are all projections? Question mark.
Yeah. So yeah, good question. So what we're looking at is not projections or if you will, that's not what we're doing here. The way that we predict or project this data is looking at each hotel in the sample set. We look at their direct booking website. Okay, so let's say, for example, that in the Sydney market, that we have 100, I think we have 180 hotels in the Sydney market. So quite a well-populated data set that we have there. We then look at each one of those hotels' direct booking website. So, as an example, like the Hilton Sydney, their direct booking website, so hiltonsydney.com, whatever it might be. And then we look at how their rates are pacing for the next 90 days. So then if you can imagine for me for a moment, if we're doing that for all 180 of these hotels in the sample set, that's basically looking at for the next 90 days going forward. So again, it's actually what's being shown and, on their direct booking website. So from what's coming from the hotel, which, makes it basically the facts, which is why so many people are, finding this data so useful. coming from that end. I hope that answers your question. I noticed that people can do comments here, but I don't think I can see them. You might have to be my. Oh, okay, cool.
It's in the right-hand panel, but you can only see that when you're at the bottom. Yep, right there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's the one.
Perfect. All right, lovely. Okay, cool. Fantastic. Awesome. I mean, yeah, so I guess look from my end there, again, it's just something that we can see here. If I scroll down a bit further, we're also going to be noticing just here a individual glance. So again, if we wanted to, just be looking at Sydney as an example and not want to have to constantly, toggle these ones on and off and so on, we can, of course, just come down here and we can just look at, as an example, Melbourne or whatever it might be. Now, what we're going to be seeing here is in the blue is looking at the percentage of hotels who have changed their rate, and in the orange here, the average rate change that has occurred. So basically the second and the third graph that we just saw above there, but now in just one easy to view graphic, as we see here. But look, I mean, besides that, I think the main thing that I've seen is that this data, is really, really helping a lot of hoteliers. We have, the global chains which are utilizing this platform. We have, everything from small motels as well, who we've offered to have a look at this. If, some of you follow me on LinkedIn, so be looking at that and seeing those kind of posts of basically saying if you'd like to see the data, you can, of course, just send us a message for a consult and so on. And the best part about it is it's completely free, because we honestly do want to be helping out the industry where we can. And of course, if we can do it through this way, and kind of safeguarding a lot of this kind of stuff for people, it is, really, really, I think, a good thing for us. All right, so question here, how are so many hotels open and projected to be open in the next 90 days during, are these the ones that are being used to quarantine people? That's a really, really good point. Yeah, I'm glad somebody asked that. So if we just go ahead and we actually have a look to that open rate of hotels, as an example, let's have a look at, the Chinese market here, inclusive of Hong Kong. So when we're looking at this, the thing to point out here is that with these quarantine businesses, or I should say quarantine for hotels, this isn't a publicly listed option. So you couldn't, as an example, book yourself in to, to stay at a hotel if you had coronavirus. These are actually government contracts. So as an example, I was having a chat to one of my clients in Auckland, and they were saying that that is quite, a large factor for their business is quarantine business. And they said that, a lot of hotels are using that quarantine business from the government. It doesn't actually show on their website, hence why they're having to be shown as sold out. So quarantine hotels aren't actually included in the data set here. This is purely what is publicly listed. So as an example, we see here for Shanghai and Hong Kong, a hugely beneficial picture, because if we look, of course, back to the start of coronavirus, these were the first impacted, regions, which is great. So even for the immediate time, we see Hong Kong and Beijing having, 85% of hotels being shown as open, which is, if we look at, say, a month ago, it was a very, very different story. As we can see here, I mean, Singapore was taking quite a hard whack. Shanghai, also Hong Kong was doing, I think, okay for the time. I mean, Beijing, as we can see here, was around 60%. So it's cool to see these markets turn around. Yeah, indeed. No, it does. I mean, if this is, anything to take away, is that, we do see that, hotels and definitely looking to get better, at least in Asia. We do see that it is being a bit more severe in America and Europe, unfortunately. Again, a lot of this is based around, the government decisions, but again, that's a completely different, discussion there. I think it is a bit tricky for, if I'm saying from myself, in India as an example, or basically a country in Australia, it is sometimes a bit tricky for me to relate data, because obviously each government is handled in different ways. So I almost sometimes rely on the client to just say, oh, we can see here that with Singapore, that in the 5th of May, there's a, oh yeah, well, you know why? Because on that day, that's when, quarantine contracts end for that month or whatever it might be. And it's all kind of about building it up, putting the puzzle pieces together to kind of give you the reasoning why, and of course how this data is being shown. So yeah, I think interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So basically, yeah. So to answer your question, we do see, with these different governments, it can be working in numerous different ways. The only one that I've really heard of is Australia and New Zealand. I'm not too familiar, unfortunately, with the other regions, Singapore, or, like India as an example. We have our other business. But yeah, I can tell you that for for New Zealand and Australia, the governments basically come to the hotel with this quarantine business, and again, it's purely signed by agreement. It might be like for a month as an example, and then at the end of the month, the contract expires, and obviously the negotiations take place from there. But again, that is a private and confidential agreement by the government and the hotels. Yeah, I mean, you never know, right? I think investments, yeah, it's a tricky one, right? But I think a lot of hotels, at least from what I've been speaking to, is they are seeing that it is, they're taking quite a hammering. So I can tell you from my end, when we are looking to, I guess, pose solutions and whatever it might be, it is, I think, not the right time, because a lot of people are hurting in terms of what they can, give expenditure. We are looking at just kind of helping get back on track. So as an example, internally as a company, what we're doing is not only offering this market data, but we're also giving, prospects and people who aren't currently partnered with us, we're giving them, free access to the platform for, a month or 2 months. Because yeah, as I say, it's a pretty bad time for a lot of hotels. QF has mentioned might be Singapore. Sorry, Gustavo, could you just elaborate on that? No problem. QF meaning?
Qantas.
Oh, right, okay. Might be Singapore first after NZ flights. Oh, I see. Yeah, look, again, that's something that I think I'd have to read into a bit. From my understanding, the first thing for the New Zealand connection. I'm not too sure about Singapore. I mean, because my regional base is in Singapore, so we have all of our Asia Pacific people basically based out of that, and it is, they do say that it's still quite bad. But I mean, the only thing that we can really do is just kind of read onto the news and what the government is releasing, and then we can of course pair that with what we have here for our data and so on. Yeah, I can more than agree with you, Gustavo. Definitely, domestic would most definitely be first, for sure. Abhishek, yeah, look, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's a good question. I don't know specifically how that would be working. I think that would be more a question for a hotel itself. But I imagine that the hotel staff would still be, utilized, because I don't think it makes much sense for a government to, I guess, outsource or bring in their own staff, because ultimately, where would they be getting that from? It would most likely just be the, the hotel staff itself, because then you can also retain the jobs and so on. The market who I'm speaking to, they are saying that quarantine business is almost, the silver lining to a lot of their, their business. It's something that a lot of people are looking for, because you see a lot of hotels which are sitting on 0% occupancy, right? And it's, this is one of the good things in this. So, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it would be interesting to see how, prices are changing, or what happens when things get back into inventory, and, allowing business. I don't think the international, market will come back for a little while. I think that's going to be something that it will, it has been hit quite severely, and we'll see, how that affects international business. I'm getting that kind of feedback from a lot of different chains as well. They kind of get that idea as well. But yeah. No, I agree. I mean, look, it's really just basically looking at what's going on in the current times. But I mean, look, Antoine, from your end, would it be, I guess, okay for you to pass along, say, some login details to this for the students? Do you think that would be useful for them to monitor and have a look at?
Well, I guess we can ask the students directly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, guys, look, is this something that you would like to have access to? And again, we'll send you the login details. We'll make like a a school or university group wide login, and yeah, we can give you access. Would that be something that might be useful? Oh wow, what is this technology? This is great. But yeah, I'll of course leave you to answer if you find it useful. And yeah, I think Anton just posted a little yes or no box. But from our end, more than happy to share those login details for you. But look, I think from my end, that's yeah. I guess had in store for you today. Any questions I guess that I could go over, Antoine, from yourself, anything like that?
No, thank you very much, Oskar, for going through both the OTA tool, the rate parity tool, and the COVID-19 data. I guess something that could be very interesting for the students to hear a bit more about is rate parity.
Yeah.
Because I believe I've told you that before, but we are using a simulation for this subject, and so the students are all managing their own virtual hotels. And something that is allowed within the simulation is rate disparity. And I would like, if you could, I would like you to talk a bit about, well, maybe what is rate parity, and why do most hotels, or at least here in Australia, why do we go for rate parity? Why don't we go for disparity? What's the advantages, disadvantages, this sort of things?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a great point, and I think one of the most talked about points of revenue management, I would say it's something that I'm always getting asked about, because for a lot of hotels and chains, it's the biggest pain point for them. So rate parity in a sense here is looking at how your rates or your distribution is spread both across the different OTAs and also in relation to your direct booking website. So as an example, if we wanted to look at an example that is within parity, this is an example of within parity. As you see, everything is the exact same in terms of pricing when compared back to the direct booking rate of this hotel. An example of something that is not within parity, and maybe I could name and shame somebody here. We could have a look. Four Seasons Sydney, the old stomping grounds. Oh dear, 5% battery. One moment, I would just go ahead and I will just go grab my charger. If that's... So yeah, look, with parity, as I say, hotels can be having a number of partnerships with different OTAs. So as an example, one of the common ones, as we can see here, is Booking.com, Expedia, and Agoda. These are the primary ones that we see in not only Australia, but I think just Asia Pacific, and with Expedia and Booking.com, the majority of the world, right? So again, if I just have a quick look here, back to the current day. Wow, everyone's looking very good with their parity. That's fantastic.
Do you think it may have to do with the the current environment?
Oh, most definitely, because a lot of the time that we do see is that they're okay. So here's an example, as we can see here. So what we see here is that with brand.com for this Quest property, we notice that Booking.com, Expedia, and Agoda, they are currently out of parity. So this is a disparity in which we see here. We see here that the direct booking website of Quest is priced lower, and with Booking.com, Expedia, and Agoda, they are priced higher. So hence a disparity. Now, this kind of brings in another question here, which is the strategy of the hotel. Now, something that you can often see is with hotels, sometimes their strategy might be to keep the direct booking website rate lower than the OTA rate. Now, the reason why is, of course, to entice people to book on the direct website, right? The reason why they want that is because, with direct booking websites of your property, you're getting 100% of that booking, right? So if somebody books on this rate here from the Quest.com of the Quest on Thornton, that $152 is going directly to the pocket of that property. if we wanted to go ahead and book on the booking.com, as an example, the $169 rate, a lot of the time with these OTAs, they work off commission, right? So if you list your property with booking.com, as an example, typically the commission sits around 15 to 20%. That's usually the reading that I get. It can, of course, be higher or can be lower. So if I book this rate, 20%, let's say, of that is going to go to booking.com. So again, that probably equals out to the revenue that they'd be getting is around 152. So again, that might be their strategy. But again, that's, of course, as we're being shown here. Now, you might be thinking as well, why do people even use these different OTAs instead of just brand.com? A lot of the time, we do see that the different OTAs, they have a much larger audience, different aspects, like they might have reviews integrated, they might have better photos, again, the location, what's around the hotel, things that the direct booking website might not have, right? So it's kind of like the one-stop shop for a lot of these people. I just heard a question just in there. Sorry, not too sure what that one's saying, Abhishek. If you could just elaborate on it. Cool, so I'll just jump over to here. That's, yeah, all good, I think. So we'll get another Quest property. All right, so we're seeing some disparities here. So in our platform, not only are we going to be monitoring, just the distribution, as we can see here, with looking at things set. As you can see here, we're also going to be looking at meta search websites. So meta search websites, if you ask any revenue manager, are the bane of their existence, because ultimately these are, rates that are priced very, very low in terms of, what they're offering. So as an example, we see here that the direct booking website of the Quest on William is at $189. And we can see here that the lowest on cheap tickets for meta search website is $178. Now, as a client or as a guest looking for rates, of course you're going to take the cheap rates, right? So you're going to go for that, definitely go for that $11 cheaper rate, because why not, right? If they can't match that, then why shouldn't you ultimately? Now, that is what revenue managers will hate to hear, but unfortunately that is the reality. Because look, we are always going to be looking for the best rate. So this is, again, a use of our platform, is that the hotelier can now see where those disparities are lying. We can see here that cheap tickets and trip.com are doing us dirty, as we can see here when we compare it to our direct booking rate. So what the revenue manager might want to do here is then go ahead and send an email to cheap tickets or trip.com, whatever it might be, and perhaps take a screenshot of this and just send them and say, hey guys, look, this is what my direct booking website is, and this is what you're pricing at, fix this, or whatever it might be, however their strategies are. But the way that I like to put it is that with the platform here, looking at parity, we are the ammunition to their gun, if that kind of makes sense. Now, this is one bit that we see here, is the distribution. And then if I go ahead and click over to here, we're also going to go further into this. And this is called our enhanced parity view. So what we can see here is we are going to group, for the next 60 days, we're going to group together the estimated loss that the hotel is set to be incurring. So if I click onto this, we're going to give them the date that the rate is coming up as, source, so the aggregator where it's being pulled from, so Google Hotel Finder, Trivago, hotels combined, so those umbrellas, if you will. The OTA rate that is offering, the hotel rate, so this is what the Quest on William is offering on their direct booking website. This is the OTA rate, so what these guys are offering. And then also how much of a loss that the hotel will be incurring if the client, or the guest I should say, goes and books on that website. Now, whilst this might not seem like a huge amount, and to be honest with you, it's not a huge amount of disparity that's occurring, but you can often see hotels getting up, huge amounts of disparities, racking up large, like really, really large, disparity bills there. So it's something to keep in mind there, which is, definitely important as a revenue manager. Now, when you're under a chain, as an example, like Quest, or as an example, like Choice, you have Quality Hotel as one of the brands under Choice, also Comfort Inn is another one under Choice. A lot of the times the chains will mandate that you are to have no parity issues, or a certain amount of parity issues, whatever it might be. Because ultimately, if you are a franchisee of a property and you aren't taking this seriously, that ultimately is going to be losing Quest or Choice. That's going to be losing them money in the long haul, because obviously taking a certain amount of percentage, whatever agreement that they have going. So you do see that a lot of chains also use OTA Insight to monitor this. Again, that's where our solution Parity Insight, which I briefly mentioned before, comes in. But again, you could really just go down the rabbit hole of all of this kind of stuff. Now I see that I hear the chat box kind of popping up here. Okay. So I remember when I used to work at the establishment hotel, I had to change the price for the direct bookings depending on our occupancy every half an hour. Yeah, no, of course. And that's something that we see a lot of the time, with this, is that if you say wanted to change your every half an hour, as you're saying there, Gustavo, we can also come into the rates tab, and we do have the functionality to actually go ahead and live shop the data, basically whenever you want. So this is really, really helpful if you do have competitors like yours, right, Gustavo, when you are changing the rate so often. You want to make sure that you have the correct rates all the time. So let's say, as an example, if this is updated 2 hours ago, right, you could have changed your rate 4 times in that, as an example. So if we click that, that's going to refresh the whole platform at the click of a button, and you can do that as many times as you want. So it's keeping the data live and in place there. All right. All right. Perfect.
Oskar,
Okay,
there was a question a bit earlier from Saloni, which is the most important tool to invest in for forecasting hotel revenue? Sort of the $1 million question.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, look, Saloni, yeah, sorry, I skimmed over your question there. Look, it's a great question, and as Antoine said, it is the $1 million question. I think ultimately, it really depends what kind of a hotel you are. If you are, a mum and dad property that is, say, a more of a motel style of property, let's say you only have 20 rooms as an example, you wouldn't want to be looking at anything massive as an example, like an RMS system where, those fees can typically cost, as an example, like Ideas. I understand that their fees are around, I think it's close to like $30,000 for some properties a year, which is, monumental. So, that's definitely overkill for something that is a small property like that. You'd be mainly looking at, city properties like Four Seasons, like Marriott systems. For, I guess, a smaller property, I honestly recommend something like this, like Rate Insight, because it's honestly all they really need. Because if you have a small set of competitors in this sense, and you're not really monitoring things like the market as a whole, if you're just a small town, as an example, using Rate Insight, you can simply go ahead, as an example, if it's May currently, and let's pretend like coronavirus isn't happening at the moment, and we can kind of say, oh, well, I want to see what my competitors are pricing at for July, as an example, because I know that there's an event going on. You can click on July. And as I said, at the click of a button, you now can see, if I hover over each one of these days, you can see what your competitors are priced at for each one of those days. And then you can, of course, then make your revenue decisions based off of that. And as I say, you can look even further into the future if you want. So a massively, massively helpful tool there. Now, if you were something more along the lines of a, let's say a 5-star CBD property, let's use Four Seasons as an example. I would definitely say that, not one tool is really going to cap off everything for you, because with an RMS system, they would definitely use that, and I know that they use that. But then Four Seasons also uses us as an example. So RMS systems are typically looking at every little factor that can be possibly contribute to a rate. They're going to set your rates for you if you would like that to happen in that dashboard. It's going to take areas, so many intricate little details that is basically in their AI programming, which is going to help the revenue manager to determine what is a better rate. And then if you come into something like Rate Insight here, then they might use again, I know that's something that you did say more so forecasting. So I think that, yeah, to answer your question, it is more so just, what is the best suiting, fit for different situations. But as a general rule of thumb, I think that the higher kind of quality and, the higher, I mean, the location, I guess, the more, perhaps capacity as well, you'd be looking at a pairing of an RMS and something like this. But then for the smaller properties, you'd be wanting to use maybe just Rate Insight. I think that would be, adequate, I'd say. I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but just to try and, get more in depth here. Cool. Okay, so is the hotel property to manipulate other channels' rates or the distribution decide on their own prices? Yeah, that's a great question. So with distribution and when you're looking at, these different channels, I'll just take us back here for one moment. Okay, cool. So anything that's on the direct booking website here, this is set by the property. Okay, so this is the revenue manager of Quest on William. They, he or she goes into their channel manager and they set these rates for, June as an example. They will then also input in their channel manager, basically on their OTAs, what they'd like to be set as. So, again, as we see here, they've keep a flat 154 rate across their distribution. But disparities happen when the OTAs go ahead and add in things like promo. Or if you're running something like, if Booking.com gets, oh, hey, well, you've given Booking.com a lower rate, and put our rate lower, to 140, or they'll match, Booking.com, or even go lower. And then the revenue manager will go ahead and say, well, hey, I didn't approve this. And then Expedia will say, well, look, you signed an agreement with us to say that we are going to be within parity with all of the OTAs, and obviously this isn't happening. So again, it just kind of goes down that rabbit hole. I mean, look, I could sit here and argue and explain that for, for hours and hours, because it is getting cheap hoteliers. But I think the way to put it is a hugely love-hate relationship when you're looking at OTAs and hotels, because on one hand, you get all of this information and all of this, user, I've lost the word now. Basically, people visiting for the hotel, but then on the other hand, they can be offering their rate at a lesser amount. I hope that answers your question. Let me know, I'll explain it a bit further. All right, cool. Many times it helped to match prices to walk-ins to avoid paying commissions that way. So many times it helped match prices to walk-ins. So as in, Gustavo, in that sense that you're just saying, like, when somebody would come in, you would match a rate. They've done it. As an example, if, Antoine books a rate at the establishment and he says that, hey, I've, got a rate here from Expedia for 150 and your direct booking rate is 170, you're saying that you would match that? Is that correct? Just pop it in the chat. I see. Yeah, no, definitely. That strategy game. For me personally, what I like to do is, because I know that now being in this world of hotels, and as and basically everyone call here, we do see that when you book one of these rates, ultimately this is a hotel because they haven't really accommodated for that kind of a rate. It is a disparity that they might not be aware of, or it's not something that they want to be shown. Obviously, a lot of the time, the lowest rate will be the direct booking rate, as we can see here. So from my end, what I like to do is, as Gustavo said, is I will actually call up the hotel and I will say, hey, look, I got a rate here on cheap tickets for 178, but I thought I'd give you a call first to see what you can do, because I understand that the meta-search websites aren't your best friends, to put it lightly. And then often they'll say, oh, okay, well, we can match that rate, because then they're not only going to be getting less of that rate because of the commission going to the OTA, but now they're going to be getting 100% of that, and they've still made booking, which is one of the strategies that can come into that. As well, IHG, for example, will match a price and reduce by 10%. Yeah, exactly right. So that's what you see a lot of hotels are doing. It is something that's quite common. Good to see. Yeah, it's good that it's interesting and you're seeing the use of it. Thank you. are some possible causes for disparity? It's a great question, and something that it is, yeah, again, kind of the iceberg picture, right? There's so much to discuss. Typically you could just have other OTAs which are perhaps offering at a lower rate. Promos, as an example, is always one that you can see happening. So Booking.com might be offering a promotion for all of its rates in the Sydney area, and the hotel might not know about it. So that's one that usually happens. Another one could be, if you have a, let's say if you have, I'm just trying to think here off the top of my head, like some caching issues can sometimes be the reason why this is happening. Wholesalers is a huge one as well. So if I go ahead and I come in just here, we'll actually break it down in the enhanced parity view. So as we can see here, wholesalers is a massive issue. So again, the premise of wholesalers, like hotel beds is a wholesaling distributor, is that an OTA might purchase rates off of that wholesaler, which typically comes at a very low amount, and hence that's why usually that they will be able to price them so low. So that's one of the main issues that we see here typically. Another one, there could be a simple issue like that. I think this hotel might have. Okay. So yeah, as an example here, we can see that wholesalers is quite a large issue. Other major OTA issues are just simple disparities as well, and so on. Anton, do you want to answer that one?
I was saying, well, yes, the rate of the commission stays the same. But that depends on the OTA. So different OTAs will have different commissions. So to give a very simple example, maybe you sell your room at 15% on Expedia. Maybe it's 20% on Booking.com. So if the room rate is $100, well, you just actually only made $85 on Expedia and $80 on Booking.com. Whatever the room rate is, depending on what's written in your contract as the commission rate, that commission won't change. The rate will, but the commission won't, as a percentage. So ultimately, the net rate that you get will change, obviously.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, as Antoine said, when you do sign in a commission agreement with these different OTAs, that will not change unless that's revised as a certain amount. And you do often see that with Booking.com, being by far the largest OTA, often their commissions will be the highest because they have the most traffic that's going through them. If you look at something smaller, like as an example, Agoda, that might be a bit different, even though Agoda is owned by Booking.com. But again, it's kind of like their side, I guess, project in a way. But yeah, you do see that, of course, happening. I remember, for example, if a room was $245 a night, we would give a 62.1, and that booking made, okay. I mean, yeah, that definitely can happen. I mean, look, I've heard of commission agreements being, as high as 40% with Booking.com. So I mean, it really is different to, it really is different depending on, first of all, the contract that they have in place, and then also the OTA, and then the hotel in that case. But I mean, look, Gustavo, I think that's a great point, because great way to, and you have to give $61 to an OTA. That's massive, right? That's huge. So this is why hotels want to keep all of their rates within parity, because ultimately they are already taking a huge whack from that commission to the OTA. And that's why we do see strategies like this one, where the direct booking website is cheaper, so that they can entice guests into booking through that avenue, which is going to give them 100% of the revenue rather than 75% of the revenue, if that makes sense.
Now, to play devil's advocate, and especially because our students are using a simulation, and because it is a simulation, obviously some of real life's rules don't apply. Price disparity can also be very useful, because then you sort of can look at the price sensitivity of your different customer segments that book through the different channels. So based on the segment, you can then play a bit around the channels and therefore either push your brand channel, your brand.com, your own website, or try to push a certain promotion that's only available on a certain channel or whatever else it is.
Most definitely. Antoine, I actually might just very quickly show you something here called Revenue Insight, which is looking at that PMS integration, which I was showing you or talking about a bit earlier. Revenue just quickly and select onto here. This is going to be looking at all of the PMS data here, which we can see. And if I go ahead and wanted to look as an example at how a certain month was going, let's say as an example before coronavirus, let's say December 2019, and we'll apply that. And then we can do over here versus same week last year, okay? So this is looking at here, December 2019 versus December 2018, okay? We have the 3 KPIs here, looking at nights, ADR, and revenues, as we see here. And then if I scroll down a bit further, we're going to get pickup and pace. And finally, the actual breakdowns, as Antoine was just discussing. So what they can do using this platform is come into the PMS, and this is all information from the PMS here, okay? So we go ahead and we can have a look as an example at, how is the business coming from, as an example, an agency. So Expedia, let's click on. So all bookings coming from Expedia for that month of December. Let's say that we wanted to look at a length of stay of 2 nights here on a weekend, which we can see here. So I'll click that. Again, you can select the actual day here, so Friday or Saturday. Scroll down a bit further. Let's say that we only want to see bookings coming from New Zealand. Again, we just keep going and breaking it down. And then again, what we're going to see here is from the top, the amount of room nights that have come from this, the average daily rate, which is being shown, the amount of revenue that was taken from that 1 month compared to last year. Again, a full breakdown here. So a huge, and again, as I'm sure you can see here, Antoine, when we're looking back, at the tools that were available 10 years ago, this is, future stuff, right? So it's really, really, crazy how quickly this is modernizing. Okay, so we're looking at the price, the OTA rates. No, it tells the OTA dependent. Yeah, that's exactly right. Perfect. So any questions on anything that we've just gone through there? All right, I think we're cool. Awesome. Antoine, anything from your end that I could explain a bit further or just elaborate on a bit more?
Well, I don't want to take too much of your time, and there's also the fact that the students and I, we need to sort of play a bit with the simulation today. And you've been of a great help with the price parity, so the rate parity. So I think I'm not going to push the issue further. So thank you.
No, very much appreciated. Well, look, thanks so much for having me on, Antoine. It's always such a pleasure. And yeah, great to speak to the next generation of hoteliers, right? Who knows, right? One day you might be using OTA Insight yourselves, and we can connect one time. But, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But otherwise, guys, look, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I think I had where was my presentation just before? I've deleted that last slide. That's okay. Yeah, as I said, my name's Oskar Will. You'll find me on LinkedIn. Connections with Antoine already, and yeah, if you want to, of course, get those details to the market data, I don't know how that poll went, but just feel free to reach out to me via email. Antoine has my details.
It was 15 yes, 1 no, and about 14 abstentions.
All right, perfect. Well, yeah, sounds good to me then. I'll send them across, and I'll just send them to you via email, Antoine, and you can distribute them as you see fit, okay?
Okay.
Lovely. Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
No, thank you very much, Oskar, for coming and for showing us both the tool and the data. I think we all learned quite a lot. And until next time.
Indeed. Until next time. Thanks so much, guys. See you later.